Another thing is, I think that's really important is to always share your knowledge with others and don't be
Right.
protective of it.
So I think people are coming on the internet with a lot of baggage in here, and they put it anywhere they want. Wherever they see there is a space,
Yeah.
they use their keyboard to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a fair comment.
Also, and when you mentioned about the loopholes in the teaching pattern that is there online by X number of people, like you talked about Ray Vandal, like you talk about John Sandel.
Yeah.
So, like John Sandel is clear
And I'm
about,
not disparaging them. I want to be
right,
very clear.
right,
Their materials are first class, top notch. I subscribe to the Ray Wenderlich materials. I
right,
read the John Sundell stuff. I just don't think that they're necessarily the right ones en masse for beginners.
true.
I can't remember. I do remember the exact day when I heard about YouTube. I was commuting to work and
Okay,
I'm driving in a car, and on the radio, some woman was talking about YouTube and watching some kind of a video. And
okay,
it's stuck in my mind. Nowadays, I call it self-directed because I learn from others. And
okay,
so I'm not so much self-taught. My iOS development career, I wouldn't consider myself to be self-taught. It's
okay.
self-directed because there are so many great content providers out there
Mhm.
providing us with the tools to be able to direct our own learning.
Hey guys, welcome to the 8th episode of the Mayank Show. And in this podcast today, we have a special guest with us. His name is Stewart Lynch. And if I try to tell you about Stewart Lynch, it will like take a day for me to explain you who he is, what he has been doing so far, and stuff like that. So I'll take a short kind of description. So he's basically IT consultant. Along with that, he makes video on YouTube all about iOS. He is basically a teacher by heart, and he has a lot to share with us today. So I'll not take much of your time. I think we should just jump on to the video and start with the intro. To be honest, it's my honor to have you on the show. So, sir, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure.
Okay, sir. So, sir, you have been like a big fat book for me when I first discovered you on YouTube. So, when I checked your channel, I saw this man is doing YouTube, and then I checked your profile on LinkedIn as well. There, I saw that you are an IT consultant as well as a YouTuber, and you have a lot of experience in tech industry as well as in teaching, as far as I know, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
So, sir, can you please walk us through what you have been doing so far and how did you come up in the tech world? How did you started off with things in iOS, and not just iOS? You have done a lot more than that. So, can we talk about it from the very beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I actually have only been in iOS since 2014, but my experience dates back to 1969,
Oh
and
my God.
that's when I first started university. So you can do
Mhm.
the calculations and know how old I must be. But yep, I'm one of the senior people in this environment. But
Mhm.
I started in 1969 when I went to university, and I was enrolled in a mathematics bachelor of science in mathematics.
Okay.
There was no computer science. Computer
At that
science
point
was
of time.
part at that point in time. No computer science. It was part of the mathematics department.
Mhm.
So as part of the mathematics department, they offered a number of different courses in programming and systems.
Okay.
So I took a few of those in Fortran, PL1. The problem was it was all based on punch cards. So you had to type your code in using a punch card,
Okay.
and then at the when you got your code complete, you had to submit it. And because I was just a first year student at the time, I had
Mhm.
to wait for the more senior students' programs to be submitted in the batch. So
Okay.
essentially, it was one program a day would have been submitted. You get it back the next day,
Mhm.
and of course, you find out you had some typos, so you had to fix that card, or
Okay.
heaven forbid, you drop your cards and
Mhm.
they're all out of order. So
Okay.
it was a bit of a frustrating environment, but I thoroughly enjoyed coding, but I just didn't have the patience at that point to continue on. So I ended up getting a degree in mathematics and not at that time taking any more courses other than in my first 2 years of university. And they were more junior level systems programming courses, but very, very rudimentary and basic
Okay.
compared to what we have today. And I got my degree in mathematics and went and worked for an insurance company in data processing.
Okay.
Found that extremely boring. There was no excitement there. So I went back and got my teacher training and
Okay.
started teaching. And my first job was actually teaching physical education and
Okay.
mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
I transitioned from there and as part of the mathematics course, I was at a high school that was associated with a senior high school that happened to have a shared computer time.
Okay.
And so it was part of the requirement of us as math teachers to teach a module in coding
Okay.
to our students. I was deathly afraid of that and refused to do it
Why so?
because because I don't like to do anything unless I am 100% confident in what I am teaching.
Fair enough.
So I refused to do that. And lo and behold, that school shut down and I was transferred to that senior school.
Okay.
And this was about in 1979, 1980.
Mm-hmm.
And it was shortly after that that Apple came out with the Apple II Plus. So the schools ended up receiving a number of computers, and I was fortunate enough because I was running a learning assistance center to help students learn mathematics concepts.
Okay.
So I got a computer and I started to use the built-in AppleSoft Basic to write programs to help students learn different concepts in mathematics.
Which language were you using at that
It
point of time?
was AppleSoft Basic, and it
Okay.
was built right into it was all command line driven.
Okay.
It was built into the operating system. Of course, you had to load with a floppy disk at that time.
Yeah.
Do you know what a floppy disk
Yes,
is?
I know.
Not the 3.5-inch ones. I'm talking about the 5 1/4 ones. So the
Okay,
larger.
I have seen that this much of size, like.
Yeah, no, these were bigger.
Okay.
So, and very, very fragile, very fragile.
And what was the memory of that? I mean, storage of the 2 MB or 1 MB or so?
Oh, may have been 16K.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh no,
It was in
yes,
KBs,
it
yeah?
was. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or maybe it went up to 32, but I'm not. Anyway, this is 1980,
80s, right?
81, 82. That's a long time ago.
Mhm.
And my memory's fading. So, but anyway, so I started to get really involved with writing software programs at that point. In fact, even sold a number at that time to this teachers organization and wrote tutorial software and just added a little bit extra money. So that was my introduction to software development, if you like, at a very rudimentary level.
Okay.
Self-directed, learning from manuals, magazines. You used to be able to get magazines that had the code written in, so you would type out the code from the magazines.
Okay.
So there was no internet. So you would get these software programs, you'd type them in and run them and
at that point of time, sir, what used to happen when we have some bugs or issues? I mean, it would have been, like taking 2 or 3 days to resolve it, maybe, because there was no such internet.
Yeah,
kind of
sometimes
thing.
you gave up. I mean, there was no assistance because there was no global community.
Right.
I don't remember being able to have anybody as a mentor at all. It was just, this is what you had to do. I read everything. I bought books and just put my head down and many late hours just writing software programs to meet my needs. And that's always been my career, I suppose, in
So you
software
have
development.
always been a self-taught developer from the very beginning, right?
Yeah. I nowadays I call it self-directed because I learned from others. And
Okay.
so I'm not so much self-taught. My iOS development career, I wouldn't consider myself to be self-taught.
Okay.
It's self-directed because there are so many great content providers out there providing us with the tools to be able to direct our own learning. So
Right.
Although, occasionally now I can say that I am self-taught because I am digging into the documentation more and doing that. But
Right.
initially, I think most of us are directed by others in our learning.
True.
So anyway, just to carry on, if that's okay.
Yes, it is.
Uh, I, uh, I eventually I became more or less known in the school district as the guy who knew computers.
Hmm.
So I was taken out of the classroom after 11 years of teaching. I was
Okay.
teaching math. I was teaching computer science. I was teaching Pascal and basic in computer science,
Hmm.
teaching far more than I ever learned when I was in university. So
Okay.
then again, so I had to learn the skills to be able to get the points across to my students. And so I was then taken out of the classroom and spent 2 years in a district position,
Hmm.
implementing technology with teachers into the classroom. So
Okay.
not so much coding, although there was a little bit of coding using this was Macintosh by this time,
Okay.
using HyperCard. Now,
No, I
last time I
haven't.
talked to somebody, they didn't even know what HyperCard was.
Even I don't know.
But if you ever get a chance to look it up, it is the first programming language that opened up programming to the everyday person on the Macintosh. And it was developed
Okay.
by a fellow named Bill Atkinson, who was one of the early Apple developers. But
Okay.
it revolutionized because you could write GUI software programs for the
Hmm.
Mac and have them compiled into a runtime version that you could distribute. So
Okay.
I ended up writing little utility programs using HyperCard
Hmm.
for teachers, for administrators to use to help them with their roles and their jobs.
Okay.
So I spent 2 years doing that, and
And to which
my
year are we referring at this point? At this point of
this would
time,
have been now in 19.
late 80s.
Uh, I'm trying to think back. Let's see, 95, 91. No, it would have been mid 80s, about 1986,
86. All right.
86. So in 1986, my supervisor at the time told me that I should get administrative experience because I was stuck in a teacher role, albeit in a district position. So
Hmm.
he recommended that I apply for an administrative position, which is in Canada is a vice principal or a principal in a high school.
Okay.
So I became a vice principal and spent 2 years doing that
Hmm.
and hated every minute of it. It was just an awful job to be in because what
Why
you end
so?
up doing, well, because you are responsible for three different clientele. You've got students, you have
Hmm.
teachers, and
Hmm.
you have administrators.
Right.
And all three of them think they're right. And all three of them oftentimes are right. And the
Okay.
teachers always expect you to support them. The parents expect you to support the students and vice versa. So
True.
it was, I have a very thin skin.
Hmm.
So I like to be liked. And so therefore, it was a very difficult position for me.
They're more of
Or,
diplomatic kind of role to manage
yeah, it
both
was.
teachers and the parents.
And not so
Right.
much a leadership role, more of a
Management
warden
role.
in a prison. Well, more like a warden in a prison, because that's
Okay.
essentially what it was.
Okay.
Okay, but during that time, things got out of control because there was nobody in a district position to manage technology. So
Hmm.
they then created a senior management position, which now I qualified for because I had the administrative experience,
Okay.
to a position called the director of technology that I moved into
Hmm.
that allowed me to direct purchases, implementation of technology, both on the education and on the corporate side.
Okay.
And that was there. At this point, there was still no internet,
So
right?
this so this kind of position, director of technology, was in the school itself, in the college itself, or
In the schools, in all the
okay,
elementary and secondary schools. So
okay,
for students from the ages of 5 through 18.
okay,
Okay. And every school had at least one computer lab of 30 computers.
okay,
Students would
nice.
go through and learn um, life skill type things like word processing, but they'd
Hmm.
also learn coding using this HyperCard
Okay.
or Lego. Have you heard of Lego?
No, but Macintosh was there in schools at that point of time.
These are all Macintosh computers now.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, our school jumped right into the Macintosh environment. So
That's a great move.
the mass purchases were all Macintosh. One or two Commodore Amiga labs that I had to do with too, but they didn't last very long.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah. So I spent 4 years in that job system,
Mm-hmm.
still not the internet, and it was based on this bulletin board BBS product called First Class
Mm-hmm.
that had you hooked up. We had 12 modems hooked up to one computer,
Okay.
and then in every one of the offices we had what was called a local talk network, not an
Okay.
Ethernet, a local talk network connecting all the computers together that could share the modem off the fax machine
Mm-hmm.
so that at one person at a time could share this single modem to communicate with this email system. It
Nice.
was rudimentary, but it worked. And
Right.
and then I had an SMTP. Was it an SMTP client? No, it was another client that could connect to the internet
Okay.
that would then do batch sends and receives to deliver mail from the internet to this local email
Oh,
system.
wow.
So anyway, it was a lot of band-aids, a lot of putting things
Right.
together,
Right.
and at the same time, I'm writing programs that were being used by the schools.
Mm-hmm.
I then moved from that school district to a larger school district in a very similar position, but this district had more money and more
Okay.
resources, and I was
Okay.
able to do more things. And at that point, the internet comes in. So this product grew with the internet and became a full-based internet email collaboration client
Okay.
that used that also had its in-house, and this was in 1995 now.
Okay.
And so this software had its own built-in development environment that allowed me to build applications on top of the email software. So I could then run applications that were compiled and ran directly within the GUI client that
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to access external databases like personnel databases, financial databases, and provide people with real-time information and access to content.
Mm-hmm.
But it also allowed me to build applications that could streamline the administration process of the actual email client.
Mm-hmm.
And so I built a relationship with that company, and then they started to engage me in WebExes, which was new at that time,
Okay.
with their clients all over the world. And so I would do things like this, talk to them, showing them the benefits of this particular software.
Okay.
And it got to a point that they decided they wanted more of my time. So they basically paid for one day of my time from the school district. So I worked 4 days for the school
Oh,
district, one
nice.
day for this software company. And at the same time, my district was starting to sell my products to other school districts because now I became known as a developer for add-on products. And so I spent 12 years in that school district. And in 2007, this software company made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. And
Mm-hmm.
they got me full time. And I took an early retirement from the school district. This is
Okay.
2007. And I spent the next 7 years with that company,
Mm-hmm.
2007 to 2014, doing um, client interfacing training,
Okay.
teaching them not only how to use the product, but also
Mm-hmm.
how to develop applications using the tools that they provided,
Okay.
similar to what I was doing.
Okay.
Right. And I also built or did all of the YouTube videos on software on how to use the software for that. So the whole First Class OpenText channel
Mm-hmm.
was my videos, 2 3 minute videos showing you different
So,
concepts.
so sir, YouTube was there at that point of time. I mean, I
Yeah.
think
Oh yeah.
it's
YouTube came in around early 2000s. I can't remember. I do remember the exact day when I heard about YouTube. I was commuting to work and
okay.
I'm driving in a car, and on the radio, some woman was talking about YouTube and watching some kind of a video. And
Okay.
it stuck in my mind. Anyway, so I
Uh-huh.
went to my office, logged in, to the internet or whatever we had
Right.
to do at that time, and saw YouTube. But it wasn't really until 2000.
I think 2008 or 9, at that point of time, it became a real name. I mean, it created a buzz in the
Mhm.
society that YouTube is something.
Right. Okay. So it certainly was before 2007 that I'd heard about it, but it
Hmm.
wasn't until about 2010, 2011. I mean, I could check the internet to see what, I think those videos are still up. You can see what time the first one was posted, but
Hmm.
it was 2010 or 11 that I started to build these videos.
Okay.
Before that, I was actually recording videos and putting them on a website. And so
Okay.
it wasn't YouTube based. It was just streaming
Hmm.
videos off of a website.
Hmm.
Anyway, so that's my sort of background. So I became comfortable doing those, never showing my
Uh-huh.
face like I'm doing now, but always sort of my voice in the background, demonstrating how to use a particular aspect of a product.
Right.
So that job ended in 2014 in
Okay.
February.
Okay.
I'd
So you
always been.
almost had a corporate job for, I can say, 15 years.
Um,
Almost.
oh no, for a corporate, like, if you consider my job with, I mean, you talking my corporate positions with the school district,
No, I'm
or
talking about
just with
the
this company?
corporate job with the IT industry.
With the IT, only 7 years, the last 7 years,
Okay.
but loosely affiliated because they had taken me one day a week
Right.
for 5 or 6 years prior to that. So anyway, so yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but anyway, I've always been, I guess I would consider myself an in-house developer, software developer, because
Okay.
I would always, at that point, write software for somebody in the role that I was. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was never selling software or whatever. And so when the company downsized and a number of us lost our positions, this was in 2014, I
Mm-hmm.
continued on doing consulting and teaching because nobody at the company was doing it, and the product still had a number of clients, a large number of clients, not only in North America, but we had offices in Sweden as well. So
Okay.
I would continue for the next 3 years to travel the United States, travel to Sweden,
Mm-hmm.
and had some individual clients where I would help them out, develop the products, teach them how to code, and that went on for 3 years. But at the
Okay.
same time, that's when Swift was released at WWDC 2014.
Okay.
So I had at that point been developing tools using JavaScript. Swift looked very familiar to JavaScript to me. There was a
Okay.
comfort level.
Mm-hmm.
I had looked at Objective-C. I was intimidated by the angle brackets and Objective-C. It just didn't stick with me.
Uh-huh.
So I decided to write an app because I was an Apple fan. I had my iPhones, I had my Macs,
Okay.
and so I wrote my first app, and um, now I have 11 on the App Store. So
That's great, sir. I mean, you almost compiled all of these years in this one go. In this one go, you almost compiled all these years, which is kind of great. And I have a lot of question with regarding all of this that you just said just now.
sure, yeah,
Like
go ahead.
you talked about learning things from manuals, right?
Yep.
And now you see that we have coaching, or you can say tutorials for everything that we need to learn today in technology, if I talk about. So what do you see is the main difference, and what do you see is more of easy or not easy to go with, like for both these approaches? Which one you can see that it is much better than this?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a fair bit, about the mistakes that I made, because when I started out learning iOS development, it was basically learning from nothing. Although I had a background in programming, so I understand once you learn one programming language, you can translate it over to another.
True.
The trouble with being self-directed is that you learn a lot of bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a real danger in learning online and being self-directed in going down a path and subscribing to courses perhaps like ones that will say, learn 12 apps and become an iOS developer at the end of my course, right? You've
Okay.
seen those on Udemy.
Right.
And that's the route that I took.
Mm-hmm.
And I finished the course and thought, okay, I can use some of those skills and I'll build an app, and I built an app.
Mm-hmm.
The trouble is that every time, and this was when Swift 1, then you had Swift 2, and then Swift 3, and all those changes and
Right.
the maintenance of these apps and to upgrade, you quickly realize that what they were teaching me wasn't structured at all. It
Okay.
wasn't good coding practices. And that's a real danger I find with sort of being self-directed. And
Mm-hmm.
I come across this every time because a number of people reach out to me, and I've been mentoring a few people.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll share their code with me,
Okay.
and there is no structure to it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's almost linear rather opposed to modular. And so what I try to focus on in my learning is trying to narrow down the concepts and try to understand individual concepts in depth,
Okay.
and then try and put them all together. And
Okay.
that's a real challenge. And I think that's the biggest challenge that people have. There are so many people delivering content on YouTube, in blogs, in newsletters, that where do you start, and who do you stick with?
It
And
becomes confusing at times.
it does. It becomes very confusing. And also, there are a number who aren't geared towards beginners.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to for example, read something from John Sandell,
Right.
and he fully admits he is not for beginners. He is for somebody who has had coding experience. Because as a beginner, if I was to read his posts, I wouldn't have any idea what he's doing, because he jumps into very complex topics right away.
Right.
And I found the same with a lot of the Ray Wenderlich materials.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are very good, like they're introductory,
Mm-hmm.
but some of their mini little courses,
Right.
their starter projects are very complex, and
Right.
they're trying to get across a particular point. But if you don't understand how their starter projects
Then
work,
you miss the
then
train.
you're never going to be able to implement that code.
Right.
So yeah, so that's why I basically started my channel. I wanted to, I have this background in education,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to be able to share my experience, but also share the way I suppose that I learn,
Mm-hmm.
in that I wanted to get down to I think, a better understanding. Now, you've watched some of my
Right.
videos. You may disagree with the approach, because there's not one way. I mean, some people can watch the Ray Wenderlich materials.
I mean, everyone has their own approach in terms of teaching online.
Yeah, yeah,
So many people can have many kind of feedback to that. So if I talk
right.
about your channel, I've been your viewer for last say 6 or 7 months, and I have no issues. Like,
Thank you.
so I'm happy with your content so far. So yeah, and also, and when you mentioned about the loopholes in the teaching pattern that is there online by X number of people, like you talked about Ray Vandal, like you talk about John Sandell.
Yeah.
So like John Sandell is clear
And I'm
about.
not disparaging them. I want to be
Right.
very clear.
Right.
Their materials are first class, top notch. I subscribe to the Ray Wenderlich materials. I
Right.
read the John Sandell stuff. I just don't think that they're necessarily the right ones en masse for beginners.
True. So I have had that kind of experience when last year I bought a course on Swift UI on a particular website. I will not name it.
Yeah,
So I have had that kind of experience where I was making an application, but I was not having the basics. The course was not having the basics, like why are you using this, why are you using
right,
that. You are just blindfoldedly using the things and making
right.
the application without knowing the basic of why are you using the state object or something like that.
Yep.
So I can relate to that. And yeah, I mean, many people out there like you also, and I also try to do the same thing, that if I have faced some kind of issue online in particular topic, or if I see a thing which is there, which is not even there right now on YouTube or maybe on some other platform, taught properly or something, so I try to make a video on that particular topic
Yeah.
so that it can be
Yeah. Well,
useful not for just the people who are going to watch it, but also for myself for future reference.
well, I've said this all along. My videos are for my reference because a number of the topics that I've done videos on,
Uh-huh.
I do a lot of research before I script and create the videos,
Mm-hmm.
and I may not use that for quite a long time.
Right.
So I'm coming up with something where I have to use it in a project or in another video.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go back and watch myself to find out how to do something because I'm not
That
using it
happens to
every
me.
single day.
That happens to
So
me
yeah,
as well.
it's great. Now that I've got 120 or odd videos,
Right.
I've covered a lot of topics, so I can go back and they they're my videos. They might be what 20 to 30 minutes long.
Right.
You'll find
Almost.
other people that will do the same topic in 5 to 10 minutes.
Some people do it in 60 seconds too.
Yeah, I know. And so I tend to take a lot longer to develop concepts and get them
Right.
across. That's definitely not for everybody. I recommend watch my videos at 1.25 or 1.5 speed and
Mm-hmm.
slow it down when you need to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I'm glad you agree. You do these videos because there's nothing better than teaching
Right.
to learn something. Because
Right.
if you're going to put yourself out there by writing a blog or teaching something on a YouTube video, you had better know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
And there, you just can't say, well, this is just copy this code and paste it in because it'll work. Those kind of videos don't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or, here's ignore, I always, if I have a starter project, I try and go through what was going on in the starter project. And then I'll say, and if you don't understand this concept,
Mm-hmm.
here's a video for you to watch,
You can
to get
refer
a
to
better
that.
understanding.
So, sir, one more question regarding the same thing that you have told me about your past and your experiences, in which there were transitions in your career, like not too harsh, but you had transitions like moving into another school, moving into another job, and
Mhm.
finally moved into the corporate IT job, and now you are a IT consultant, right? So, what kind of challenges have you faced back then in transitioning those jobs? But as far as I know, and as far as you have told me just now, I think there has not been such kind of challenges because you have a smooth transition. Uh,
Yeah, I've been extremely lucky.
uh-huh.
Um, the biggest challenge is self-confidence.
Hmm.
And with age comes self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a lot of chances because I was in a comfortable position as a mathematics department head in the school. Could have
Right.
stayed there my entire life,
True.
but things things happen, and I always like challenges. So I went on to another job where there was no job description. In fact, just about every job that I've had after teaching had no job description.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to make the job what I thought it should be,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I've been really, really fortunate. When I worked for for First Class Open Text, the company, it was a remote position. The company was based out of Toronto. I'm in Vancouver in Canada,
Okay.
and there was no description as to what I should be doing other than we have a client that needs some training. Can you go and do that? How I filled my day, the rest of the day was
Mm-hmm.
entirely up to me.
Okay.
So, I that's a challenge, but it's a great challenge to have because as long as you're producing and doing things
Mm-hmm.
that the company likes, then that's great. And another thing is, I think that's really important is to always share your knowledge with others and don't be
Right.
protective of it,
Right.
and gain the confidence of the people that you're working with, and you'll get acceptance far more than you would if you held all that inside yourself.
That's true.
But yeah, I wish I could say I had a lot more challenges, but I haven't. I've been very, very lucky in my career.
Okay, but some people do face challenges while starting off with coding per se. So
Hmm.
you must have been, experienced with this, that you get comments like, "I want to start learning iOS development. From where should I start?" Or, "I have been doing Swift for last 1 month or so. What should I do next?" So what is your
Right.
advice for them? Like they are always like they're on a blocker and they ask you something regarding what can they do next. So what would you
Yeah.
say to that?
Well, I guess I say it's not a race, so start slow.
Hmm.
Um, have a goal and reasonable expectations, because I think that's something that you really have to know where you're headed, and make sure that you got multiple sources of content. So books,
Hmm.
blogs, videos, courses, etc. For example, I purchased 4 books and subscribed to 2 courses on Combine, and
Okay,
each
four
one of
books.
those, yeah, and each one was different.
Okay.
So, and it wasn't really, and I'm not exactly sure if it was Mark Boykin's book that really solidified things for me, or if it
Mm-hmm.
was Karen Prater's Combined course,
Mm-hmm.
Physics Nerd, that made a difference, or if it was um, Dim Sum Thinking's book or Donnie
Okay.
Wall's book. They all had something different to offer, or Muhammad Azam's course on
True.
Udemy. I took them all. And now I think I have a pretty good basic understanding of Combine,
Mm-hmm.
but that took me a year and a half essentially to get into and to get through, because I just kept on starting and stopping and not going anywhere until I found another resource that explained it to me slightly differently. So
Mm-hmm.
and I guess, tied in with that is I've been really fortunate, and I can afford to spend the money to
Right.
enroll in those courses and buy those books. And I know that that's not everyone's case. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I doubt if I will ever put together a course that will be a paid course. I want all the content that I provide to be free
Free.
content,
Mm-hmm.
although I do have a coffee fund account that people can, if they want,
Support
support me
you.
by buying me a coffee. But that's not my goal. My goal is basically just to share the information.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of starting out new, if anybody asks me, I would always recommend to do 100 Days of Swift UI.
Mm-hmm.
That way you get a nice overview. Sometimes, but it's not necessarily, the topics don't go over in depth.
Right.
But if there is a particular topic that's not clear to you, seek out then a YouTube or a blogger who can provide you with more examples, but using a different approach.
Mm-hmm.
And then, just try to make sure, because I made this mistake a lot when I
Mm-hmm.
was first developing my apps, is that
Mm-hmm.
I would find some code that worked and I would copy and paste it into my app, tweak whatever arguments or parameters were there. And if
Mm-hmm.
it worked great.
Mm-hmm.
And, God help me if my app crashed, because I wouldn't have a clue as to why.
Right.
And I think that's really important, that you shouldn't just copy and paste. Don't make those mistakes that I did. Make sure that you understand how the code works, and if that
Right.
means taking a step backwards, to go and do it. And I also
Right.
said to avoid those courses that are teach 12 apps and learn all about
Those
because I think
clickbait
that's,
type of courses, right?
yeah, that's a death trap. But there are some excellent courses out there, and I can think of a couple in particular, two providers. One is Sean Allen, who has his uh, he's got 2 courses. In fact, I'm taking his Swift UI course right now on CloudKit, using
Okay.
CloudKit, and it's extremely well done. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
take his beginners courses, the one, the iOS interview course, but all reports are that's excellent as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another fellow on YouTube, Brian
Brian Wong.
Vong. Vong, let's build that
Right.
app.
Right.
And so if you take a course that takes you through an app entirely from start to finish, that
Mm-hmm.
explains every single concept, I think you're going to get better value for your dollar taking those courses,
Right.
because you start to learn the reason why somebody does something one way. There's an end game. They're not taking any shortcuts, and I think
Right.
those are excellent courses and to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
then once you've got experience, I'm sort of rambling on a little bit here, but once you have experience, I think it's important that you also take some of these overview courses. And I think some of the best courses of overview are ones done by Muhammad Azam or
right,
azamsharp. And
right.
so I think I've taken just about every one of his Udemy courses, and
Yes, he
they're the
mostly
only
offers
one.
on Udemy. Most of the courses are there
Yeah,
by
and
him.
he's the first, he's the only person probably on Udemy that I take and go through every single one of his lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not sure if he appreciates that because I
After
ask
after watching
questions.
this, he would definitely.
Well, I don't know, because I ask questions. I say, well, why are you doing this?
Uh-huh.
I would have done it this way. And I have to always take a step back because I'm afraid that I might be sounding critical, but it's not. That's the way I learn.
Mm-hmm.
I ask questions. If I don't understand something, I'm going to ask, why did you do it this way? Sometimes I'll get the answer I want. Other times I will,
And
excuse me, I won't. So,
and it's also true that you ask questions. You don't ask questions when either you are clear about the concept or you completely don't know about what is going on. So that case happens
yeah,
when you don't really ask questions. The condition is either you know everything
yeah,
about that concept or you know nothing.
yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. Although I try not to carry on anything until I understand what's going
Uh-huh.
on. I think that's my main goal. And if I'm not clear
Mm-hmm.
as to why something is happening, that's where I'll ask the question.
That's
And
nice.
yeah, except that some people might take that as being critical. And I
Maybe.
don't mean it that way. That's at my age, I just ask the questions and
Mm-hmm.
hope that they'll be able to take it for what it's worth. So, and I do that with Sean Allen. I've done that with Muhammad Azam.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that with Brian Bong. I've done that with
Mark Moikins.
Jared Davidson, Mark Moikins. I do that with him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And maybe I get answers now because my profile is starting to get recognized, and so they're going to respond to me. But I'm never going to criticize another person publicly ever. That's just not my style.
And criticism is not always abusive. You can have a productive, or you can say more constructive criticism too. Like if
True,
you are
true.
asking something which is completely related to the concept, or maybe you are giving a feedback which you really feel that you can improve in this thing, then I think it's okay.
Yeah, and I do that as well. I do that as well. But occasionally I'll get comments on Reddit or on YouTube after
Mm-hmm.
I've posted one of my videos, and like some people are just brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And that affects you as a content provider. You
Right.
don't never remember the great comments. You just remember the bad ones, and
How do you deal with that?
not well, not well. I, uh, yeah, I try not to engage if I think it's going to be a caustic engagement because there's no win there.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never been good at criticism, at accepting criticism. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think I spent so much time putting my videos together and trying to make sure that they're clear and
Has it
won't
to do
encourage
with a
criticism.
life that you lead? Like if you are living a happy or stable or good life, then you don't see much of criticism or abusiveness or nasty comments right there on your face, right? When you
Right.
come online, you see people around the globe talking about your content. Maybe if you are getting comments, then it could be anything. Like Canada could have a different kind of nature, different kind of people, and some other country can have different kind of attitude or people or something like that, right?
Right.
So I
Right.
think it's not the fault of people, the fault of internet also. That
Yeah, there's a certain anonymity in the internet that gives people what they think is the privilege to be able to just say whatever they want.
right,
You
right.
and in fact, when I was working, there was a gentleman who was a senior staff member who loved to just send out emails that were caustic and critical.
Okay.
And if you go back to him with an argument on email, he would come back with something even worse.
Oh,
The solution I realized was to get
not
up from
replying.
my desk on the 4th floor and go down to the 1st floor and walk into his office, and
Oh,
totally different situation, face to face, never happens again. And I mean, so every time he did that, I refused to respond. I would just get up, walk down to his office and confront him face to face. Not in a nasty way, just
mm-hmm.
saying, "What's up?" And that's
We
how
can
you
talk in
resolve.
this way, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't do that on the internet.
Right.
So, a lot of people are, just jab and run,
Mm-hmm.
and
I see
that's
a
what
lot of
happens.
people talking about hate online. They have also observed that there are two kind of personality that a person holds. One is that he behaves online, and one that he actually is. Then he is actually is in his real life. So sometimes they have observed that there are people who are more of abusive on internet, but they are
Hmm.
not like that in their real life. They are just
But
expressing.
you never find that out because all you see is their internet life, right?
Right. But in case of big influencers like in entertainment zone, there have been people like here in India, if I talk about, there have been influencers who talk about this, that there was someone who was commenting again and again something nasty on their videos. Then they came to their DM, and after some time, or maybe after 2 or 3 months, they made a video apologizing for that. Like,
Yeah.
we we
Oh,
are we are sorry for that, and all of those things. So I think people are coming on the internet with a lot of baggage in here, and they put it anywhere they want. Wherever they see there is a space,
yeah.
they use their keyboard to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a fair comment. And yeah, I, and I'm going to be the first one to apologize. I remember one time, and I feel badly when people misinterpret what I say.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't know if I should even mention this. Well, I'm going to because might as well. I had Kilo Loco,
Mm-hmm.
I watch all of his stuff as well,
Mm-hmm.
posted about being a self-taught learner,
Okay.
self-taught iOS developer.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a comment, and all I said was, I would consider that self-directed
Okay.
because we all learn from everybody else.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he took that as my being critical and
Oh.
dismissing the work that he had to do to learn how to be an iOS developer without formal training,
Okay.
and made a comment, and all sorts of other of his followers jumped in being critical of me for being critical of him.
Hmm.
And I'm
I
trying
got
to
your point.
say, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. And I was being apologetic and groveling almost to apologize for the misunderstanding. And to this day, I still believe that he thinks that I was being critical, and I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. It was
Mm-hmm.
just a difference of term that. Oh, and I do that all the time. I people use the wrong words. I don't know if you ever watch um, Fireside Swift or listen to Fireside Swift, the podcast.
No.
Okay, it's another podcast that where it's now there's four guys that just talk about Swift development,
Okay.
and they go on and they talk, and it's a lot of fun, and they'll use words incorrectly. So I will get on Twitter and tell them that they used the word incorrectly, but they know that it's all in fun. But I've
Right.
always sort of done that. But people call me the grammar Nazi sometimes because I
Uh-huh.
correct on grammar. So I got to be very careful that I don't do that because people would take that as being a personal criticism.
I think
I have to understand
textual
that.
conversation sometimes goes wrong with the intention that we are writing. Uh, Adding two or three emojis to a simple sentence can make it different.
Yeah,
Not
true
adding
enough.
those emojis can make it rude as well.
Right. Well,
So
that's why face to face
that's
is so
internet
good.
for
You've got
us.
a facial expression, right? Yeah.
Right, right, right.
Right.
And I have talked to Kilo Loco as well, and he's a nice person. I don't think that he thinks anything ill of you when he read the tweet. right? It must be
Mm.
something related to the interpretation, obviously.
I hope so. I hope so too, because I think he offers so much of himself
Right.
and freely,
He maybe
and
thought something else when he read it. He maybe interpreted it in a wrong
yeah,
way, and he
yeah.
thought that you are
I'm
might
sure,
be
but
right.
yeah, it's just that I got criticized and that hurt me, right? So
True. All the
anyway,
fans came in and they tried to spam you. And
yeah,
that's the bad part.
yeah.
I mean,
But
you
you
can
know
have
what?
a
I ended up then engaging with some of those people individually with
right.
DMs saying, "Look, this is what I meant." Got
Exactly.
that sorted out, and in the end, it all just went away. But
I mean,
that
it could
that was
have been
uncomfortable.
between two people only, you and Kilo
Yes,
Loco. But
yeah,
it became a public scenario when all of
yeah,
them jumped in that conversation and
yeah.
tried to tell you what is right and what is wrong.
I mean,
So,
if he listens to this this podcast, he may not even remember it, but I
right.
remember it
Because
because I
you
felt
faced
badly.
because you faced the consequences of writing it.
Well, I felt badly that somebody would
Right.
interpret what I said that way. But anyway,
Right. I can understand
yeah,
that. You also
yeah,
said, sir, that go slow while learning, right?
yeah.
And on the contrary, we see there is a hustle culture which is going on these days. For last 5 or 6 years, you can see also going. You can see this culture also going here in India as well. Like everybody is talking about hustling, everybody is talking about the part-time gig, and whatnot. So you are a person who have been coming from a year in which there was nothing like this. Like there were people who
Mhm.
were satisfied with their job, there were people who were obviously progressing in their job, but also were living at that in that moment, right?
Right.
So what do you think about this hustle culture versus the life that you have seen before this hustle culture as well?
Yeah, I don't think it's healthy.
Hmm.
Um, I think yeah, you definitely have to have a balance in life, and I'm guilty myself of being consumed with something. You know, my wife will certainly tell you that I tend to end up in being engaged in what I do in technology far more than I should be, and not finding enough time for the family. And
Hmm.
some people, it seems, have a really good balance, and I really admire them for that.
Hmm.
I don't think that you can last long. I think you'll burn out if you hustle and you're always doing only one particular thing. You know,
Right.
you definitely have to take the time to relax. Now, that's easy for me to say because I'm in the last stage of my life. I'm not looking for a job.
Hmm.
I don't want a job. I just want to continue doing what I'm doing. Whereas people like yourself who are looking for new opportunities all the time,
Hmm.
the competition is fierce. I
Hmm.
have no competition. I mean, you might think I've
Right.
got competition in the content provider world, but I don't care. That's not.
No, I think if we talk about the iOS community to be specific, I don't see any competition right here. Everybody is like more of in a collaborative approach
Oh,
rather
well,
than
excellent.
competing with each other.
Okay. But I would think that there's competition for jobs,
Right. That is
right?
fair.
And I think that's probably what I mean. It's that um, and that you talked about collaboration, and maybe we just touch on that.
Hmm.
That's the one thing that is fantastic about the Swift iOS development community is the whole collaboration and sharing and cooperation.
Right.
And occasionally people, because I follow a number of Facebook groups as well,
Hmm.
Code with Chris and other ones, and those are all beginning people going, and then so they'll ask me questions on those channels as well, and I'll respond to, and I'll say, well, direct message me on Twitter,
Hmm.
and they'll say, oh, I don't use Twitter. I think Twitter is the
Right.
best source for research and information,
I believe the same.
and I have a Swift, an iOS dev list that's open on Twitter. So if anybody looks at my profile, they can access my list, and everybody on that list is somebody who has just about everybody has somebody who has something to offer on software development.
Hmm.
So I will spend an hour every morning going
Mm-hmm.
through the last 12 hours of Twitter, following up any links to articles that might be on a particular new topic. If it's good, I'll link that to my bookmark manager, this rain.io, so that, and they're all categorized so that when I need to dive deeper onto a topic, I've
Okay.
got dozens of links on a particular topic that I can go down in and read about how somebody else does something. So, and all that's free.
Mm-hmm.
All that's free. You just have to know what to look for. Or
Right.
because it's Twitter, it just becomes this incoming feed. So I have stopped. I may have 400 or 500 people that I follow on Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
but that's my main list. All I ever look at is my iOS list with 150 or whatever iOS developers. I don't
Okay.
ever hear any of that other stuff on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
All of the political stuff, I don't ever hear it. All I do is I'm just following the Twitter stuff.
I follow the
Occasionally,
same approach.
some of them will have political statements to make, which is fine because everybody has the right to do that. But I don't have to read it. I don't have to
True.
respond to it. I can skim through it. So
True.
yeah, you have to be a good curator of information for sure.
Even in the beginning, when I started using Twitter, I was following some political figures as well as some um, artists, like some actors and some
Hmm.
musicians as well. So they were having a different kind of opinions, different kind of content, and politics. Obviously, you know how much toxic it is when it comes to politics. So
Right.
I finally unfollowed all those accounts. Now I'm only following the iOS accounts only, like people
Yeah.
who are there in the iOS community. I'm following, I mean, 90% I can say
Yeah.
the people I am following are related to in one way or the other to iOS.
Yeah. That's
So
very similar to me then. Yeah. Yeah.
so it basically filters out everything for you, and Twitter becomes like a place where you can learn something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not just a
Yeah.
networking thing, but also you can learn
No.
something from people who are sharing their experiences and who are sharing their thing that they are doing currently, or maybe their
Right.
project, maybe they are reading something and
Yeah.
something like that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I'll try and if I find something that I think is really interesting, I'll quote it or retweet it because it's important to share quality materials, I think.
It doesn't come very natural to me when I come to tweeting. I think a lot before writing a tweet, and then I try to discard it, then I forget about it. So
Oh
this is what
yeah.
happens to me. I start initiating the tweet, then I think, should I tweet it or not? Then I discard the tweet and I go away.
Huh.
So what comes to your mind when you write a tweet or share something?
Nothing really comes to mind. It's just if I see something or if I've come across a bug or an interesting concept that I think that other people would like to know about,
Hmm.
I just read it. The biggest challenge is trying to fit it into the limited number of characters that you have, and not rambling on. So,
Making a
um,
thread of it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I don't like threads because I always sort of lose those. So
Okay.
anything that I try and I don't even know if I've ever really done a threaded tweet. I always try and just whatever I'm tweeting about, fit it all within a single tweet
Hmm.
and go from there. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Let's talk about your channel now. Since you have been making a lot of videos on iOS, on Swift UI, and whatnot.
Mhm.
So, what have been your approach with creating content on YouTube? Like you said, that you want to share whatever you possibly can and whatever possibly you know, right?
Right.
But the question is, why don't you show yourself on the channel? We want to see
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I think it goes back to just not wanting to turn people off because of my age. Uh, we spoke of this
I think
before we did the video.
sir, I think that's an assumption that you have, maybe.
Well, it is, but it's borne out in truth because I have had that experience on more than one occasion when I was working for this IT company, and I would travel and to teach people who are software developers how to code
Mm-hmm.
in this particular environment that I was working with,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all much younger than me,
Mm-hmm.
and I could tell right from the beginning that they would challenge what I was saying with respect to me really not knowing because I was so old. How could I teach them anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it would always take at least a day before I gained their confidence and they understood, that I had something to
I
offer
know the
that
game.
was intelligent.
Right.
And so that was sort of the main reason I don't want to show my face.
Mm-hmm.
But also the way that I create videos doesn't lead itself to do things online. I
Okay.
mean, because the way I create a video is that I will spend a couple of days building, like for example, right now I'm going to be creating a video on looping. It's just a
Okay.
basic SwiftUI topic, for each, whiles, repeats.
Okay.
So I've spent a day going through the resources that I have
Mm-hmm.
and building examples into a playground.
Okay.
And I've just got the playground. And now I have to go through and I will write a detailed script of what I want to say as
Mm-hmm.
I'm going through this playground.
Mm-hmm.
Then I will record the video without this, just following my script. Then I have to go back, and then of course I'm making all sorts of typos because
Right.
I'm just making all. So I have to then go back and edit the video by taking out all of the typos, maybe speeding up some coding or whatever.
Okay.
Then I look at my script and I say, well, that doesn't match that video. I'm going to have to change my script a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Then I record the script, and
Mm-hmm.
then I take the video and the audio and put them together and then match up my audio with what I'm doing on the video.
That's a
I
long
couldn't do that
process.
live. And I couldn't be efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So what now takes me half an hour to do would take me an hour. Well, because recording each one of those videos takes me an hour and a half. If I had to speak, it would just be a nightmare. So it's easier for me not to show my face.
Okay.
Maybe I could show my face at the very beginning and say, hi, here I am. I'm going to do this video. But I can't code and talk at the same time. That's just not something that I can do.
I used to do it when in the beginning I started without showing myself. Then I started doing videos in which I was also visible, talking about the topic, and at the same time I was coding as well. Then I saw that it used to take a lot of time for me to edit it, just because I used to make a lot of error while live recording as well as
Right.
typing things. So then I boiled it down to showing myself at the very beginning while giving an intro about the topic, and
Right.
showing myself at the last of the video.
Well, you see, now that's something that I probably could do if I gain more confidence. But, I don't know how important it is. I mean, some people have certainly made that comment. They think that that's important that I do that.
Mm-hmm.
Others, not so much. But, at least the avatar that I use shows me as a bald-headed, white-haired man with glasses. So people have an idea that I'm old anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't
So
know.
I don't know why are you uh, so kind of please don't mind the word. I don't have any other word to say. So possessive about being old and showing yourself online.
Yeah, I guess it's just that whole almost imposter syndrome. Because
Yeah.
when you think of somebody as being a software developer,
Mm-hmm.
what comes to mind? A young,
Somebody looks like a geek
yeah,
looking
or either
into the.
that, or somebody in my mind is somebody who lives in the Bay Area of San Francisco, is a more of a hipster, in tune with what's going on.
Again, that comes to the perception. Like we both have a different kind of perception about how a software engineer looks like,
Right.
right?
See, mine is more of a North American software
Exactly.
engineer, iOS developer,
Got it.
and yours is a different take on it, and
Right.
that's just through experience, I suppose. So I don't think, because let's face it, I'm 70 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's considerably older than most people that are in this business.
But have you seen Stanford lectures on iOS development?
Oh yeah, I've done those.
So, do you know what I'm talking about now?
Yeah, sure. The instructor, I mean, he's
Right,
great,
right,
and he's not young.
right. And we all watch him.
We all do. He's pretty opinionated too, you know,
Exactly.
but he's intimidating, to be honest with you.
And you also look like him somewhat. Maybe
Well, it might be the age, sort of, although he's not nowhere near my age, but yeah, yeah, he's good, but he's got the respect. I'm not sure I've earned that respect, so
too many perceptions, sir.
yeah, true enough. But that's the way I am, I suppose.
Right. And I
Yeah,
completely respect that.
yeah.
Okay. Right. So, sir, what are your next big plans? Like you are repeatedly saying that uh, I'm not going to get into this because I don't think I do have so much time for that. So, what are your next plans? Like, please tell me about that. Regarding not just
Yeah,
regarding what you are doing, regarding your life, what do you think you would be doing in next couple of years?
yeah, probably more of the same, but more travel. If things open up, I mean, we're in a position in our life where we can afford to travel, and there are a number of places that I want to go back to that I visited in the past. So once things open up, I'm fully vaccinated now. My wife will be next week, and they open up international travel. Then we're going to be spending a lot more time doing those kinds of things because, as I say, there's not that many more years left. So I've got to do it while I still can. But a large part of my life is getting feedback from people. So I want to continue doing my YouTube channel, making a difference to people. I love it when I get feedback from people saying that they appreciated what I've done, um, and comments, and I'll continue to do that and continue to just try and maintain a predictable release of videos. So a number of people will be very active for a couple of months, and then you won't see them again for a long time. And I try and limit my releases to one a week, and build up a number of videos. So I'll have 5 or 6 so that I can go on a 2-week holiday and not have to worry about creating another video because I've got things all set up in the queue.
Right.
But there are just so many topics to be covered in iOS, and I got probably about 10 or so that I want to do on iOS 15 once the dust settles
Wonderful.
there and the bugs have been sorted out. So there's an awful lot of content and a lot of different approaches to different topics, and I'll just continue to do that. But my main goal is I'm on a diet, try and
Okay.
reduce my weight,
Okay.
maintain my weight, and
Uh-huh.
just try and maintain a healthy life so that I can enjoy it because there's just so much to live for.
Was it all planned, sir? Like, have you planned everything from your maybe late 20s or 30s? Like, when I will become 40 years of, I will turn 40, I'll be doing this. When I'll turn 50, I'll be transitioning my life into this.
Well, being in education, because remember, for the first 32 years of my career, I was part of the education, always within education, and there is a fantastic pension plan.
Okay.
So as long as I stayed within education, I was building up enough back end money there for a annual pension. And
Okay.
so that was always the plan. So it wasn't until after 32 years, 35 years is a maximum.
Okay.
32 years, I mean, you could work longer, but after 35 years, you qualify for a full pension.
Okay.
So I decided then after that 32 years, I could continue to work, make more money with another company, and that would supplement any loss that I would have on my pension. So that I didn't have any long-term ideas. I just knew that as long as I stayed within education, I was going to have enough money at the end to do what I wanted to do.
Okay.
Have a family, have a house, be able to travel. It's a great life. I can't complain about that. I've had a fantastic life, but I've worked hard for it too. So
And it's really good to hear these kind of things from you because today we see the society is not that happy with what they are currently doing and always talking about doing something else that they are not currently doing and cannot maybe do that. Like
Mm,
people in job think about creating a business, and
yeah.
people in business always complains about running a business. So so what do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, the grass is always greener.
At the
That's,
other end, right?
that's it. Even though I took chances in my career and always wanted to do something else, um, I was always just in the right place at the right time. I was always sort of on the edge of things, willing to take chances there,
Mm-hmm.
but never having to take a chance that was going to lose my job. Right? I
Hmm.
was, as long as I did and stayed out of trouble, there was no way I was going to lose a job. And
Because I think
that's the
once you have a family as well, you think a lot about leaving your job, because it obviously comes to the finances that you have to manage at the end of the day,
right,
right?
right. Yeah, yeah. Oh, certainly that's important. My son's established now, and he's 28. He's out the
Okay.
house, so yeah, it's we're just my wife and myself and my dog, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest thing is finding someone to look after the dog when you want to leave somewhere. But
Mm-hmm.
that's there are tougher challenges in life, I'll tell you.
Right, right, right,
Yeah.
right, sir. So, sir, any closing comments or advice do you have for all the youngsters and the people in your age group as well out there who are trying hard, who are living their life, who are making things happen for themselves, and can take a takeaway from what you have had in your experiences?
Yeah, just be persistent and don't give up on your dream, because you're never too old to learn,
Mm-hmm.
and you're never too old to make changes. And things will always get better. They will if you just stick with it. I have to believe that. I have to believe that.
Mm-hmm. And I just wish that you come online on your videos. Maybe we will see your live videos coding. That is my wish as a subscriber that you will one day come in this way and maybe
Yeah.
live
Well,
coding.
don't hold your breath. Let me put it that way.
Okay, sir. Sir, thank you so much for coming on the Mayank Show. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, it was my
And
pleasure being on.
I think we could have more podcasts like this because, as I said before, for me, you're like a big fat book in which if we turn any of the page, we get to know a lot of things, right? So this is something I can interpret it in this way, that it is like a book for me. If I ask you something, it's like a complete chapter for me. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences, sir. And I'm looking
Uh,
forward to more such conversations in coming future.
well, thank you very much for inviting me on.
I hope you liked it, and yeah,
I did. It was very enjoyable. Thank you.
good to know. Thank you so much, sir. Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye.